Benefits of the ketogenic diet really heavily weigh on the mitochondria and its role in energy metabolism, as well as being able to use different sources of fuel to create energy, as well as reverse a lot of the ailments that modern lifestyles have brought about. Alzheimer's in some circles is being called type 3 diabetes, and we're seeing some really incredible success stories of people with Alzheimer's almost doing a complete 180 in terms of their condition by going on a ketogenic diet, and all of a sudden their brain just wakes up and they come to again. There's a lot of information out there with respect to cancer. There was a film producer from Norway that actually had cancer that was pretty much inoperable, and his doctors had written him off. He decided he's not going to take this laying down. He did his research, came across a number of different protocols related to ketogenic diet. A few months later, his cancer essentially disappeared. And this was a situation where the doctors said, no, there's nothing we can do for you. And he healed himself. His doctors, they were shocked. Prior to this, we thought once you have type 2 diabetes, that's it. You can manage it, you can slow the progression, but you're going to have it for the rest of your life. It wasn't until these studies on things like the ketogenic diet and calorie restriction where we found that you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes. If there's one takeaway that I've come across in my research and my personal experience, is that what we think of as conventional dogma now might not be true in a month, in a year, in 10 years. I remember back to even just as simple as understanding nutrition's role in skin health. I remember as a teenager, I went to a dermatologist for acne and things like that, and they said, you don't have to change your diet. There's no connection between diet and acne. Now you think that's ludicrous, right? It's so much common sense, like even a toddler would understand that, but back then it was unheard of that you could change the health of your skin by what you eat. And so there are many things like that where we think of something now or in the past, and it's just not true anymore.
Dr. Lee No, welcome to the Keto Camp podcast, my friend.
My pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
I'm excited we're doing this. I know that our mutual friend Ari Witten made this happen, so thank you, Ari, for making this this connection happen. I fell in love with your work, with your new book. Well, not your new book, your last book on the mitochondria, and it gave me like a masterclass on what the mitochondria do in the body. It's far more than just these energy power plants, and you did a great explanation of what it does and the understanding of it. But before we get to that book and some of the new things you're doing, let's rewind and talk about like the journey that led you down the path of becoming a doctor. How did that even happen?
Well, I've always been interested in health and medicine, and at that time, I thought I was going to get into conventional medical school, but I've always been more interested in nutrition, botanical medicine, and other types of modality that would kind of fall into the more traditional side of medicine. And when I say traditional, I mean I guess more like the complementary side of medicine. And I didn't even know that naturopathic medicine existed until I think it was my second year of my undergrad at university. And this is one of the things that's really cool, and how things just happen in your life that kind of guide you onto the right path. And I remember sitting beside this person who just sparked up a conversation with me, and she told me that she had just got into the naturopathic medical college in Toronto, and that was the first time I even heard about naturopathic medicine. And I was thinking, well, what is that? So I remember going home and looking into this and realizing that it's exactly what I wanted to do. Even if I went into conventional medical school, I knew that once I graduated and went into practice, it would probably be predominantly based on nutrition and botanical medicine. So finding naturopathic medicine, I thought was perfect. What's interesting is that I don't recall seeing that person ever again. So it was almost like she entered my life to tell me about naturopathic medicine.
Wow.
And then disappeared.
She changed your life forever, and you haven't even thanked her for it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so to make a long story short, I went to the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in Toronto, and I graduated from that school in 2003, which is hard to believe. some of my colleagues and I are talking about our 20th year anniversary, or our
Reunion.
20-year reunion. Yeah, so it's mind-boggling to think that it's been that long already.
Oh, that's interesting. You know what's funny is that I graduated high school in 2003, so I recently got notified that we're doing our 20-year high school reunion, and I had the same thought. 20 years? I can't believe it's been 20 years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this woman changed your life forever. If you're listening, Dr. Lee, no thanks you for that. If you ever come across this episode,
100%.
and you led you down the path as a naturopathic doctor. Now, what led you to write the book, Mitochondria and the Future of Medicine, the Key to Understanding Disease, Chronic Illness, Aging, and Life Itself? And then how long did it take for you to write that book? Because it came out in 2018. So what fascinated you about the mitochondria along the way?
Well, so I was actually consulting for a supplement company in Canada at that time, and they were heavily involved in coenzyme Q10.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my role there was not just product development, but also educating other practitioners and doctors. And this was at a time where I think things really started to pick up for CoQ10. And one of the things that I was tasked with doing was putting on some presentations to fertility clinics around the use of CoQ10. And, most of my education and training for in that role was pretty basic, talking to other stores at a very easy to understand level. But I knew that in order to go into fertility clinics and talk to the nurses and the doctors, I needed to understand the situation to a much greater depth. And it was that research in developing the presentation to talk to those clinics where I really started to understand how important healthy mitochondria and mitochondrial function is, not just for, to your point, energy production or even just fertility or enhancing fertility treatments, but it spanned pretty much all aspects of a healthy life. And that's what really got me interested at the start. But then when you start digging deeper and deeper, it just gets more interesting and more complex as well. And one of the things that I thought was, well, I'm coming across all these resources with excellent information, but I haven't come across anything that kind of pulled everything together into one resource. So I thought, well, there's an opportunity here to put something out that kind of combines a lot of different resources and the information that's scattered throughout various disciplines and bring them together into one book. So that's what I launched, actually self-published in 2014.
Oh,
yeah. So that it's an older, it's 4 years older than what you thought it was. At that time, I just kind of put it out there as a self interest project. But it got picked up by a couple big names, I guess. They read it, they liked it, and that kind of put me on the map. And what's interesting was throughout the next few years, I was getting contacted by a number of different publishers that wanted to get the rights to him and to the book. And I really ignored most of them. They were coming from Eastern European countries or foreign places that I was wondering, is this a scam or is it legit? But then along came Chelsea Green. They sent me an email saying, we like your book, we'd like to retain the rights to it. And I looked into them, and they were a U.S. Publisher. They were a legitimate publisher. So I thought, okay, let's see where this can go. And to make a long story short, I signed the rights over to them in 2017. What they ended up doing was taking the original book and just relaunching it under a new title. Of course, in that time, I did more research to make sure that the information was still current. And as you know, anything related to science is constantly changing. What's true today can be false tomorrow. So in the span of, so when I signed the rights over to them, that was 2017. So that was 3 years of 3 years gap I needed to fill in terms of making sure that everything was still current. I added a few more references, did a little bit more research, and then that was the book that got published in 2018.
Very interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that backstory. And the book is, very successful. It's reached a lot of people. Like you said, it put you on the map. What was the original name or title of the book before it was changed?
It was Life, the Epic Story of Our Mitochondria. And it was, like I said, it's pretty much exactly the same book as the one that is now available. And but like I said, it was self-published, and this one is a lot more professionally done.
I want to take a quick break from the video you're watching to share something with you that has made a big difference with my health and the thousands and thousands of students that I teach all across the world. Now, this is a unique device that has been shown to help with skin health, sore muscles, wrinkles, psoriasis, eczema, scoliosis, migraines, sleep issues, arthritis, acne, scar tissue, wound healing, relaxation, and also boost testosterone levels. What am I talking about? What is this miracle drug? Well, it's not a miracle drug. It's red light therapy. As you can see here, this is called photobiomodulation. And I use this red light therapy device every single day. Not only do I use it, my fiance uses it. Our dogs and cats love it. And the device I have here is from Bon Charge. Bon Charge has a different range of big panels, small panels, from affordable to ones that are a little bit more money, depending on how much you want. And I love this product. I feel so good. And it doesn't take a lot of time to get all these benefits. I simply take off my glasses, which is Bon Charge glasses, by the way, turn it on, and I have it running for 20 minutes once a day. And turn it on, and as you can see, I just leave it there on my desk as I work. 10, 20 minutes per day will suffice, and it makes a big difference. You're going to notice a big improvement with your skin health and all the things we mentioned earlier in just a matter of weeks. So if you want to get your hands on this Bon Charge red light device or get their big panels, they also have panels that you could take on the go that are more affordable, then head over to boncharge.com/ketocamp and use the coupon code KETOCAMP to get 15% off your red light device, or as a matter of fact, your entire order. Any product, you can get 15% off with that nice coupon code KETOCAMP. So whether it's these Bon Charge blue light blocking glasses, their sauna blanket, or any of their awesome products, use that coupon code KETOCAMP at checkout. We'll drop a link down below. Go check them out. They're awesome. And let's get back to today's video. Yeah, for sure. It's a fantastic book. So if you haven't gotten it, go get it. I know it's from 2018, and to your point, things have changed. There's updated stuff that have come out, but it's still such a valuable resource. So I do recommend anybody listening or watching to go get the book. Some of the principles I'd love for you to share from that book, and I know it was in the 2014 through 18, and things have changed. But did you come across anything in regards to ketones or the ketogenic diet with mitochondrial health? Or if you did, okay, so let's start there, and then we'll talk about some other golden nuggets from that book. So what did you discover with keto and the mitochondria?
Well, as you know, the ketogenic diet is very heavily, or the mitochondria is very heavily involved in the ketogenic diet, or the benefits of the ketogenic diet really heavily weigh on the mitochondria and its role in energy metabolism, as well as being able to use different sources of fuel to create energy, as well as reverse a lot of the ailments that modern lifestyles have brought about. And more specifically with respect to sugar intake and things like diabetes and insulin sensitivity and insulin secretion. So one of the things that I do talk about in the book is the benefits of a ketogenic diet. I don't spend a lot of time on it, and I won't pretend to be an expert in it, but there is a very strong link between the benefits of the ketogenic diet and how it improves the functioning of the mitochondria. And with respect to ketones, specifically, one of the things that I briefly talk about in the book is its role in things like diabetes and Alzheimer's. And as you might already know, Alzheimer's in some circles is being called type 3 diabetes. Yeah. And we're seeing some really incredible success stories of people with Alzheimer's almost doing a complete 180 in terms of their condition by going on a ketogenic diet, providing a different source of fuel for their brain. And all of a sudden, their brain just wakes up and they come to again. So really cool stuff. Of course, there's a lot of information out there. And I, again, touch upon this briefly in the book with respect to cancer. And of course, cancer requires a lot of fuel to constantly grow. And when you starve it of its main fuel source, which is sugars, of course, you're going to have some positive effects there. So whether it's a treatment that people want to do on their own, or as an adjunct to conventional cancer protocols, it's one of those things that I think people should look into and see if it's right for them. A slightly related but different story here is, and this is also really cool, is so there was a film producer from Norway that actually had cancer that was pretty much inoperable, and his doctors had pretty much written him off. And he decided to, he's not going to take this laying down. He's going to fight it. And what he did was he did his research, came across a number of different protocols related to ketogenic diet, and put himself on this protocol. And a few months later, I think it was, and sorry, my memory on this is a little bit fuzzy. I think it was like 6 months or something like that. His cancer essentially disappeared. And this was a situation where the doctors said, there's nothing we can do for you. And he put himself on this ketogenic diet, as well as a number of other things, healed himself. His doctors couldn't find the cancer anymore, and they were shocked. But when they asked him what he did, they just kind of brushed it off and didn't follow up, or didn't even want to do a case study or understand why this might be happening. And so because of that, and because of his background as a film producer, he ended up deciding to do a documentary on himself. And then so I was part of that, as well as a number of other authors in the same space. And that was released in, I think it was, I want to say it was like 2020.
Do you remember the name of the film?
You know what? I don't, but I can. I'll get that for you.
Yeah, get it to me later on, and then I'll put it in the podcast notes. And yeah, that's an amazing story. It's too bad the doctors didn't want to use that as a case study and then explore that more, because, well, I'm not surprised, right? If you could put the benefits of a ketogenic diet in a pill, they would have for sure been all over that, but you can't, unfortunately. Even when there's a lot of studies out there when it comes to a high fat, low carb diet in reversal of type 2 diabetes, it's so effective, more effective than any drug out there, including metformin and all these other drugs, but you can't put it into a pill. So why would they study it, right, Lee?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the craziest thing, is that when you look at the only studies that have really found the ability to reverse type 2 diabetes. So prior to this, we thought, once you have type 2 diabetes, that's it. Right. You can manage it. You can slow the progression or the consequences of type 2 diabetes. But, you're going to have it for the rest of your life. It wasn't until these studies on things like the ketogenic diet and calorie restriction where we found that you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes. And again, sorry for my mind being so fuzzy. These studies that I looked at are a little bit distant in my memory now, but I remember coming across studies, and I mentioned a couple of them in my book, where these individuals with type 2 diabetes were put on the ketogenic protocol, and within a few months, essentially all of them did their blood sugars were back to normal. And then I think it was like 6 months post-study, 90% of them still, and this was after returning back to their regular lifestyle, not on the ketogenic diet.
Wow.
Like 90% of them, and again, don't quote me on that number, but the vast majority of them still had no signs of diabetes. So it is a curable condition, as long as you know how to do it. And it's just trying to get that message out there.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen it with so many of my students who have been taking insulin for years, and they go and they do a ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting, work with their doctor to lower the dose, and eventually get off of it completely. It happens all the time. It's no longer the old dogma of it's a progressive chronic disease we can help you manage. It's a whole bunch of BS. And of course, we're talking about type 2, not type 1. There's, at least right now, there's no cure or reversal of completely of type 1. But with a keto diet and intermittent fasting, it actually helps the quality of life with a type 1 because they're not as insulin dependent, meaning if they were injecting themselves 7 times a day, they do keto and fasting, they might lower that to like 3 times a day. So it just helps their quality of life, but not reverse it completely. We've seen that in some mouse studies with Dr. Valtralongo. With fasting, it regenerated the beta cells in type 1 diabetic mice, but we haven't seen it in humans. But I'm not throwing it away. Like, meaning I do think one day we'll come up with a way to reverse type 1 diabetes. I don't know if it'll happen in the next few years, but I think it will happen. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. You know what? If there's one takeaway that I've come across in my research and my personal experience and just being in the health industry for the last few decades, is that what we think of as conventional dogma now might not be true in a month, in a year, in 10 years. Yeah. And I remember back to even just as simple as understanding nutrition's role in skin health or anything like that. And I remember as a teenager I went to a dermatologist for acne and things like that, and they said, yeah, you don't have to change your diet. There's no connection between diet and acne. Now you think like that's ludicrous, right? Like like how it's so much common sense. Like even a toddler would understand that, but back then it was unheard of that you could change the health of your skin by what you eat. And so there are many things like that where we think of something now or in the past, and it's just not true anymore. And it goes back to even our talk about type 2 diabetes. Like, it really is, something that you can turn around. And just because other things currently we say that you can't really treat it, or it's a progressive condition that is only going to get worse. A lot of that I question now, because it's just a matter of time before we discover something that's going to work in those situations.
Exactly. Well said. Before we shift to your new company, Cannanda, I'm saying it right? Cannanda.
You are, yeah.
Before we shift there and talk more about the endocannabinoid system, let's close the loop on the mitochondria, but it's also going to relate to the what we're going to talk about next with your new company and what the endocannabinoid system, how it works. But what are the top 3 hits, if you will, that create mitochondrial dysfunction? Like, well, if you had to choose 3 of the top things that are just destroying our mitochondria, I know there's a lot, but what are your top 3 based off of your research?
Well, I think a sedentary lifestyle is huge. So being physically active, and as much as you've heard that for many other situations, being physically active is the single greatest thing you can do for your mitochondria. And again, in terms of understanding the mechanism, if you read my book, you can understand the rationale of why that's the case. Not just being sedentary, damaging the mitochondria, but being physically active and how that can help improve the health of your mitochondria. The other one would be diet. Mm-hmm. So ensuring that you're eating a nutrient dense diet that's not full of empty calories. One of the things that I again talk a lot about in the book is that these calories have to be burned, and when it's burned through oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria, a lot of that, especially if you have excessive amounts and not enough physical activity, you're going to create those superoxide or
reactive oxygen species.
That's right. Yeah. Which go on and damage the mitochondrial DNA, which is pretty much in the immediate vicinity of where those free radicals are generated. So making sure that you're reducing your caloric intake, but at the same time improving the nutrient density of those foods, you're going to make sure that you feed your body with the nutrient it needs, but not in a way that you're introducing excessive calories.
Were there any specific nutrients that, like supplements, that you saw really helped with this mitochondrial health or mitogenesis?
There are a few. I would say I talk about B3 in the book, and of course there are a number of different versions of B3 that are more beneficial in terms of mitochondrial biogenesis. So for your listeners that might not understand what mitochondrial biogenesis is the process of creating more mitochondria. And in essence, the more mitochondria you have, again, if they're healthy, the more energy they can produce, and everything that happens in the cell requires an input of energy. So the more mitochondria you have, the better everything else works. So mitochondrial biogenesis in general is something that you want to see happen, and happens naturally in response to things like exercise, caloric restriction, things like that.
Yeah.
But with respect to nutrients, B3, I mentioned nicotinamide riboside, which is a great supplement. I know right now what seems to be really popular is MNM, which seems to have some interesting research as well. I think typically the research has pointed more towards intravenous supplementation. But it's interesting to see what might come of that as long as the human research is being done. There's PQQ, which is another quinone molecule in a similar sense to CoQ10, which is also a quinone molecule. CoQ10 is also great. I talk about magnesium. I'm not sure if I recall seeing studies with respect to mitochondrial biogenesis specifically for magnesium, but it's one of those things that most people are deficient in, and is a key part of ATP, which is the energy molecule in our bodies. And D-ribose, I think, is a great one as well.
That's great. So those are two tips. I guess that's the third tip with the actual supplementation. Out of those three tips, so we have exercise, moving your body, strength training, etc., eating whole foods, and then these specific supplements that you could take in nutrients. Which one would give you the biggest bang for your buck? I imagine, and I think you said in the book, it's actually like strength training or exercise will give you the biggest bang for your buck. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's free, right?
It's free.
Like
go sprint, go move your body. It's free.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know that your book came out in 2018. Since then, I've really took a deep dive into the mitochondria, and I started to get into what ketones specifically do to the mitochondria. And I got into a lot of research, and I don't know if because I know that the book came out a few years ago and you transitioned, but I'm just going to share this and see if you've seen it or not. But I've seen that ketones are acting like these signaling molecules that communicate with the mitochondria to create the mitogenesis, which is the creation of new mitochondria. But it does it by kind of stressing the mitochondria, similar to exercise, right? That's the theme there. Stresses it, but stress is not bad unless you don't adapt to the stress. But the right amount, you get stronger. So it creates more ATP. And I've seen the electron transport chain and what it does if a mitochondria is burning sugar, glucose, versus the mitochondria burning ketones, fat. I've seen about a 400% increase in the ATP with ketones because of this mitogenesis versus just sugar burning. Have you seen something similar?
I have not, but that is really fascinating information.
Yeah, that's what I've seen the last few years. It's so interesting, which makes sense because what most people say when they do keto, is the number one thing in terms of the benefits of, the weight loss and all that, but what it does for their brain. And to your book's point and to the research out there, the most mitochondria is in the brain. So it's like it makes sense that ketones will have the biggest bang for your buck in the brain and what it does for mental clarity. So it's just so interesting to me.
Yeah, and one of the things that I find really interesting is the breadth of research that's being done in this area. And this, even back in the mid 20 teens, where I was doing the bulk of my research, every week I set up an alert on PubMed where I would get an alert on a weekly basis if there was any mention of the mitochondria, and on a weekly basis, on average, I would be getting about 300 new studies.
Wow.
And that alert is still active, and on occasion I check it out, and it's still to this day every week there's hundreds of new studies, and of course they're not all clinical trials. Some are more exploratory, and some are in vitro studies.
Right.
But the fact that there are that many studies on a weekly basis that was happening for decades, we're really going to be pushing the knowledge forward, and that's going to hopefully benefit everyone.
Hey, I want to take a minute to share something with you as we take a break from the video you're watching. One of the most common things I see to why people don't have enough energy levels, they have trouble building lean muscle mass, they have brain fog, fatigue, and they don't feel good is because of a deficiency in a hormone called testosterone. Now, testosterone is a very important hormone to have in a healthy amount for both men and for women. So, how do you reclaim your vitality? How do you reclaim this very important fat burning and muscle building hormone? Well, you can do it with a powerful supplement called Upgraded T. It has been my go to for naturally elevating testosterone levels. Upgraded T is from Upgraded Formulas, and it contains the highest quality of ingredients that have been proven scientifically to increase testosterone production. Now, as I mentioned, if you're a woman watching this is very important for you just as a man watching this right now. Upgraded T is a natural and safe way to boost testosterone levels. When you boost testosterone levels, it's going to increase your sex drive, vitality. It could help replace fatigue with all-day energy. It'll help you lose that stubborn belly fat. Testosterone is required for fat burning, so it'll help you with the last 5 to 10 pounds that you're looking to lose. It helps you be in a better mood, helps with your memory and focus. So here's the 3-step approach. Step 1, take 2 capsules of Upgraded Tea with water every morning. It does not break your fast. You can have it with food or without food. Step number 2, notice your energy levels and dominate your day with more confidence and more vitality. Step number 3, wake up the next day having better sleep and just keep doing what you're doing. As simple as that. So if you want to get your hands on Upgraded Formulas, Upgraded Tea, and any of their awesome products like their Upgraded Magnesium and their hair mineral analysis testing kit, head over to upgradedformulas.com. And if you use the coupon code KETOSIS at checkout, they're going to give you 15% off your entire order. That is upgradedformulas.com. Ketosis at checkout. We're going to drop that link down below. And let's get back to today's video. Yeah, that's fascinating. You're right. That's a proof that this is a very important part of biology to study and to research. There's a gentleman named Dr. Robert Navio, who's, I believe, out of California, and he's been going on with his research on something called the cell danger response. And we're seeing that a lot with COVID and the long haul COVID symptoms with when somebody gets a COVID infection or a virus. And it's not just COVID. It's something that is a kind of a cellular threat. The mitochondria, according to his research, are acting, and you have to listen to your book, is acting like a surveillance system to identify these stressors. So let's say COVID, for example, is a stressor. But if their stress bucket is full, if they don't have really healthy mitochondria, and then they have this virus that comes in, the mitochondria will lower energy production for survival to deal with the threat. So it's like a surveillance system. So it sees this threat, lowers energy production, and then the threat is gone. The virus is gone after 7 days. They recover, but it gets stuck in this low energy state where it's in a cell danger response. So we need to teach the mitochondria that it's safe. He calls it peacetime metabolism versus wartime metabolism. And when that mitochondria is in the CDR response, that's where the symptoms continue to manifest. And I don't forget. I mean, I do forget because I read your book so many years ago. But did you have aspects of that in your book? I don't recall.
I don't recall. I don't think I came across research like that when I was writing the book.
It's newer research that I've seen, but isn't that fascinating?
It is, yeah, and obviously perfect timing for that information to come out, so that
those dealing with COVID long haul symptoms. The
Absolutely.
goal is the mitochondria. So your book is 100% relevant because you're going to talk about how to upgrade the mitochondria. So if you're dealing with long haul COVID symptoms, work with a practitioner, but you might want to get the book, Dr. Lee's book, so you could just understand more about how to support the mitochondria. Okay, that was fun. I'm glad we got to dig into that. Now let's transition, Lee, to your new company, which is called Cannanda. Not Canada, but Cannanda.
That's right, yeah.
Why did you make the transition? What are you doing? What are some of the cool things you're seeing?
Well, this is an area that I've always been interested in terms of the endocannabinoid system's influence on health. And what's really cool is that there is some connection, and right now it's in the early stages, and the scientific community is still trying to figure out how the endocannabinoid system and the mitochondria kind of dovetail together. But there is a connection, and what's interesting is that they're both related to homeostasis. So the endocannabinoid system is often thought of as the master regulator of homeostasis, and anytime something goes wrong in the body, it's the endocannabinoid system's job to kind of jump into action and start the processes needed to bring about healing or bring back those processes back towards its balanced state. And so this has always been an area of interest, as well as the mitochondria. And when I was going through clinical practice at that time, it's one of those things that as a practitioner, we just didn't have access to in terms of recommending cannabis and things like that. So it was always kind of an interest, but I didn't pursue it. So one of the as the years went on, and Canada was about to legalize cannabis, and keep in mind that medicinal use of cannabis was legalized in Canada far before recreational. It started to allow me to look into that a lot more, and that just kind of my interest in this field grew. And when I started to look at how to influence the endocannabinoid system in a way that may or may not need cannabis, I realized that, you know what, there's a legal way to do it without even cannabis, and there's no one doing it. And that's one of the reasons why I thought this was a perfect opportunity to bring about something that's you don't need to go to a regulated cannabis dispensary to buy it. And of course, there's a lot of individuals that might benefit from the benefit from cannabinoids, but they don't want to go to a cannabis dispensary to purchase it. So our products are sold through health food stores. So a lot of the avenues that they might be used to getting their health products. So it's a lot more accessible. It's a lot more economical, and I feel that it really does fill a gap in the market. Of course, there are situations where cannabis might be more indicated, but I would say we can bring about the same type of health benefits in the vast majority of the individuals that are using medical cannabis at a fraction of the cost, as well as in a much safer way.
I love that. I love that. It's such a great idea. So is your product available right now in health food stores, and is it in a supplement form?
It is, yeah. So basically what we're using is there are compounds called terpenes, and terpenes are regulated in Canada as flavors, as a matter of fact. So one of the things that we use is a base of hemp seed oil, which is legally available. It's just the oil pressed from the seeds. We add these terpenes that activate the CB2 receptors. And because we're not even using anything that falls outside of the health or the supplement regulations, our products can legally be sold in health food stores. So we have hundreds of stores throughout Canada.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Products.
That's super cool, man.
Yeah, and then we've exported to Australia, the UK, and the European Union, and even South Korea.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. What about here in the US?
Yeah, we've tried to enter the US at the start of the pandemic, and we actually had a few sales reps, and we just signed the contract when the lockdowns happened. And so they were not able to hit the road and go out. We found some limited success, but of course with the lockdowns and stores being shut down, there's really no business to be had. So by the end of 2020, we pretty much said, you know what, it doesn't seem to be working. We're going to have to kind of shut things down in the US and look for another opportunity. Fast forward to now, and it's coincidental timing that I'm talking to you. We are actually probably a week to 2 weeks away from launching in the US.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, we're going to be launching first with our topical product, which is the CB2 salve, and that I think will initially go up on Amazon. So
awesome.
We're super excited. The US is obviously one a market that is big, and I think that there's a huge opportunity to help so many people. When you look at the number of people that we've helped in Canada, which is a tenth of the size, and we have thousands of testimonials, I'm really excited to get our products into the US. And of course, with our launch in the US, we're actually having our products manufactured in the US as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I love all of that. And I want to talk a little bit more about what is this useful for. I don't really have a good understanding on the endocannabinoid system, and I would love for you to just educate me a little bit further, because I understand that the nervous system is very crucial to balancing out the parasympathetic branch versus the sympathetic branch. But where does the endocannabinoid system fall into that nervous system balance? Because you mentioned that it helps with homeostasis. What's happening there in regards to the nervous system?
Yeah, so I'll backtrack and just talk about the endocannabinoid system. As I mentioned, is often seen as a system related to homeostasis, and its two main components are the endocannabinoids, or cannabinoid compounds that our bodies make, and the cannabinoid receptors. So when we talk about cannabinoid receptors, the two main ones that are often discussed are cannabinoid receptor type 1, or CB1, and cannabinoid receptor type 2, or CB2. Now, CB1 receptors are the ones that, when you activate, are associated with intoxication. So when you use cannabis and THC, that activates CB1 receptors, and that's what gets people high. Now, of course, there are medicinal benefits to activating cannabinoid receptor type 1, or CB1, but it's always going to come with that intoxicating effect.
You're going to get high.
They're going to get high, yeah. On the other hand, CB2 receptors are predominantly found in the periphery, and when you activate them, it brings about a lot of the health benefits associated with cannabis, but you don't get the intoxication. So the main benefits are related to an anti-inflammatory benefit. The CB2 receptors are largely found on the immune system cells, which is related to things like inflammation and the immune response. So when we activate the CB2 receptors, you bring about a resolution, or you tame down the inflammation. And related to the nervous system, one of the things that happens is the endocannabinoid system works through what they call retrograde signaling. So the signals go backwards. And so what that means is that when you have signals going down your nervous system, showing an overactivity, the endocannabinoid system sends a signal back to the presynaptic neurons to say, hey, you know what? Things are a little bit too crazy here. Let's tone things down. And that's how the endocannabinoid system regulates the nervous system, is by sending these almost inhibitory signals up the chain.
Interesting. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So, question on, you said there are CB2 receptors largely found in the immune system cells. Do you know if there are any in the dendritic cells of the immune system? Have you seen that?
That I don't know, but one of the things, I don't recall coming across that specifically, but CB2 receptors are found pretty much everywhere in the body. So if you're forcing me to say yes or no, I would say yes.
You're inclined to say yes.
Yeah. Nearly every tissue and cell in the body has been shown to have CB2 receptors. The interesting thing is, though, and I'll use the brain as an example, because the brain at one point was thought to be void of CB2 receptors. We know it has a lot of CB1 receptors, hence the high you feel when you use things like cannabis. But we didn't think that it had CB2 receptors. But the neuro research does show that CB2 receptors do exist in the brain, and how they end up in the brain is when there is a stress put on the body, our body actually upregulates the production or the expression of those CB2 receptors. So CB2 receptors are very much in flux all throughout the day, and are upregulated in response to any sort of challenge. So if you have to use a simple example, like if I sprain my wrist, my body would upregulate those CB2 receptors in my wrist. So when you take a product like ours, those terpenes are going to find those CB2 receptors. And for me, it might benefit the pain and inflammation in my wrist. But for someone else that might have upregulated CB2 receptors in the brain due to anxiety, they're going to feel a different set of effects because their CB2 receptors are located in the brain. So it's one of those things where our body really tells our product where to take effect.
That is fascinating. Okay, so let's unpack that. You said the brain has CB1 and CB2 receptors, and when there's mental stress, let's say somebody's dealing with COVID, right? Not getting COVID, but like all the craziness that happened with COVID. So mental stress. They're watching the news. They're talking about the president. They're gossiping, and they're like stressed out. That's going to upregulate the CB2 receptor sites in the brain to deal with that, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
So sorry, just to finish that thought. So if somebody is constantly in that stressful environment, mental, they're not getting out, does it create like a resistance, like an insulin resistance sort of thing to those receptor sites? Can that happen as well?
Well, that's an interesting question. And the research that I've seen so far says no, not with respect to CB2 receptors. Now, what we call tolerance to different therapeutics does happen with CB1 receptors. So there is a bunch of research to show that with chronic exposure to CB1 receptor activators, our bodies do develop resistance or tolerance to
those. You need to take more to get the same effect, but you haven't seen that with CB2 receptors.
That's right. But with CB2 receptors, we've not seen tolerance develop. So, and that's one of the benefits of something like ours is that it doesn't, people are able to take it at a steady dose for a prolonged period of time. Whereas as an example with cannabis, especially the ones that contain THC and you're activating the CB1 receptors, whether you're using it for medicinal reasons or recreational reasons, you've probably come across regular users that over time have to take larger and larger doses to get the same effect, and often even a decreased effect. So, when we look at cannabis users, medicinal users, they're often using, sometimes 7 to 10 grams of cannabis, which is huge. Wow. They might have started off, with half a gram, but over time, they need to use more and more. That doesn't seem to happen with our product because it targets the CB2 receptors, which hasn't shown the same response in terms of tolerance.
Fascinating. I love the idea of you mentioned like an ankle sprain or whatever it is, like you have an injury and your body's going to send inflammation to that area. It's going to upregulate the CB2 receptor sites in that area. So if you take a product like the Cannanda product, it's kind of like giving your innate intelligence the building blocks to go ahead and heal that area. This is the area that you have the body has upregulated those CB2 receptors. Let's take something to enhance that repair mechanism without kind of blunting it. Meaning, if somebody took if they put ice on there, that would be a different protocol because you're kind of blunting the innate intelligence by icing it or taking a whole bunch of antioxidants or ibuprofen. From my understanding, this is different. This is giving your body the building blocks, so you're not blocking the innate intelligence. You're just allowing it to actually do a better job. Is that a fair understanding?
That's a good way to put it. And that's exactly one of the things that some research has shown is that not only by activating the CB2 receptors, you're not only addressing the immediate symptoms, but you're actually improving the body's ability to heal. So you can actually speed healing. So you're not just masking symptoms. You're actually, to your point, providing the building blocks or the signals that your body requires to start the healing process and make it faster than you would otherwise see.
I love that. So what's the difference between your product and like CBD oils out there? What are they targeting? What's the difference between those products and what you have?
Yeah, so CBD is great, and sometimes our products do get confused with CBD just because of the name CB2.
Right.
Of course, the name CB2 comes from the fact that it activates CB2 receptors.
We understand that now. I understand.
If you didn't know, right? But what's interesting is that CBD actually doesn't activate CB2 receptors. And
CBD out there.
That's right. So CBD has a very low affinity for cannabinoid receptors. And it's funny because it's called a cannabinoid. It's a cannabinoid molecule and a cannabinoid compound, but doesn't actually activate CB1 or CB2 receptors. Our product is based on a terpene called beta-caryophyllene, which is found in many different natural plant sources and has a very strong affinity for CB2 receptors. And what's really cool about beta-caryophyllene is it's called a selective CB2 agonist. So unlike THC, which can activate both CB1 and CB2 receptors, so just to be clear, when you get CB2 activation from using cannabis, it's actually coming from THC. So even though people think of THC as activating the CB1 receptors and giving you the intoxication, it's actually activating CB2 receptors as well.
So, a CBD oil with THC will activate CB1 and CB2, but it has to have THC.
It has to have THC. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think when people use CBD, the best type of product is what they call a full spectrum extract, because the full spectrum is going to have the THC, and that's where the CB2 receptor activation and a lot of the health benefits will actually come from. Our product is a selective CB2 agonist or an activator. And what that means is that it activates the CB2 receptors without activating the CB1. So again, you get all the health benefits or the physiological benefits of activating CB2 receptors, but none of the intoxication that comes with CB1 activation.
Interesting. This is just super fascinating. Okay, so the product is in the form of creams and supplements. Those are the two primary ways you have where you could use them.
That's right. Yeah. So our initial product was just a pure concentrated terpene blend. So terpenes, just to kind of talk about that briefly, are often considered the active compounds in essential oils. You can use our concentrated terpene blend in a very similar way you use essential oils. So if you want to use it topically, you can kind of dilute it with a carrier oil and add it, rub it into your sore joints or sore muscles. But like essential oils, you can actually get terpenes into your body through inhalation. So you can actually put a few drops of the pure concentrated CB2 terpene blend into your hands, rub them together, cup them around your nose and your mouth, and just take slow, deep breaths. So as they evaporate off your hands, they get absorbed through the lungs. And that is one of the best ways to actually use terpenes. And nature has made them volatile compounds and meant to be absorbed through the lungs. So when you do that, the effects are quite quick. So I relate it to if anyone has experience using cannabis, both through an inhalable form like smoking or vaping versus an edible, they'll tell you that when you vape it or smoke it, the effects are going to hit you within seconds to minutes. Whereas you eat an edible, you're looking at an hour, 2 hours before it hits
you. It's dangerous because you're like, I don't feel anything. Let me eat more. And then all of a sudden you got to watch out.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So same thing with these terpenes. When you inhale it, they get into they get absorbed through your lungs, and the effects are a lot quicker than our oil or supplement versions where you're ingesting it. Often because it's a fat soluble compound, you're eating it with, you're taking it with food or your dinner, and the effects are going to come on hours later. So again, so as an example, if you have an anxiety attack where you want the effects to be immediate, inhalation using our terpene product through inhalation is going to bring you that quick relief, whereas maybe dealing with chronic stress or something like that might be better with our supplement form, whether it's the oil or soft gel form.
That's great. It's great to hear that. So can you diffuse it as well, like an essential oil?
You can. My only thought on that is that when you diffuse it, it's just it's going to get diluted in the air of the room. So you're not really going to get a good dose
of those. Concentrated, like if you're.
That's right.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So you might get some benefit, but it's really questionable. It's it might smell good too, but to get the good concentration of the terpenes into your body, you really need to kind of use it through direct inhalation.
But it might smell good and it's not going to hurt you, so it could be an option is what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's just not going to get the strong effect if you just put it on your hands and inhaled it. What about, so my dog, I have my dog is sleeping here. He has, when there's thunder or fireworks or when I'm traveling, he starts shaking, he has anxiety. Will something like this help with dogs that have anxiety, and how would I use it for my dog?
Yeah, so what's really cool about the endocannabinoid system is that every vertebrate mammal has an endocannabinoid system. So that includes dogs. We actually have a dog line called Doggies CB2,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's actually our top seller. Our Amazon seller in Canada, it has it as a number one bestseller on Amazon. So it's doing really
Wow.
well. And we have, again, thousands of testimonials with respect to use of our products in dogs. The cool thing is that in Canada, we actually have Health Canada's approval for our doggies line with the claims of joint health, stress, and more specifically, stress related to diet changes or travel. We have a claim with respect to immune system as well as general health. So those are approved claims that we can make on our products. So a lot of people do use it for stress related behavior in dogs, whether it's separation anxiety or things like
Fireworks
thunderstorms or
and
fire.
thunderstorms. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you had that. So it's called Doggy CB2. Is that what it's called?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So if you go to our website, which is cannanda.com, you can see the dog products there.
I love it. Awesome. And what about children? Let me ask you this: who should not use this product? Maybe that's an easier question.
Well, you know what? So every ingredient that we use in our products has GRAS status, or generally recognized as safe. So that is U.S. based food safety designation, which means that these ingredients are as safe as ingesting food. So when you look at food ingredients, there really is no age restriction. So technically it's safe for everyone. That being said, we usually recommend 6 years and above. So we say, 6 years and above, you can use our products. And we've had a lot of individuals or parents give our products for various reasons to their children as well. Just going back to, and I wanted to finish my thought on dogs, and I mentioned, all vertebrates have an endocannabinoid system. The fact that we use terpenes, you have to just tread carefully with cats. And the reason is that cats do have an endocannabinoid system and it could benefit from these products. And a lot of people have used our products for cats. But cats also metabolize terpenes at a much slower rate than humans and dogs. And for that reason, the dose given to cats is a fraction of what the label for dogs says. We don't have a line for cats, but a lot of people do use our dog products for cats. Just have to understand that you're only using 1 or 2 milliliters of the hemp seed oil version, and the pure concentrated terpene drops usually not used for cats because even 1 drop is a little bit too much.
That's good to know. Okay, there you go. That's perfect. So I have 2 cats and a dog, so that's good for me to know as well. We're gonna drop a link for your website down below for everybody to go check this out and get the product. Last question for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, Lee. Last question for you is about a supplement, but it's not the supplement you created. It's a different one that also has been proven to be anti-inflammatory. I've seen it help with anxiety, fat loss, and sleep. I call it vitamin G, and I'm referring to the practice of gratitude. I think it's such a healing vitamin, and that's what we want to call it. So the question to you, Lee, is what are you grateful for today, my friend?
You know what? I am so grateful for everyone that's come into my life. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've been given if it wasn't for everyone that's come into my life, whether it's even just talking to you, Ben, and my partner, my children. They've all taught me so much. My business partners, even just the people that read my book and reach out to me. It's incredible how fortunate I've been, and I often think I must have been a great human being in a previous lifetime to deserve this, right?
Right.
So yeah, in terms of and I 100% agree with you. Gratitude is so important. That outlook and that mindset that's needed to just be grateful all the time really does benefit you personally in terms of your own health as well. So being grateful and just having that attitude of gratitude all the time is you know, extremely important for health, as well as, you know, it just makes the world a better place.
It does. Yeah, you can't overdose on it. There's no upper limit. Kids could take it, dogs could take it, cats could take it, we could take it. So yeah, vitamin G is very, very powerful. And you know, to your point about all the people who have entered your life, including the women who told you about naturopathic school, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's right. Yeah.
it's all these pieces. It's pretty cool to look back and see how, you know, I believe in God, so how God put these people in your life to like kind of make you create this life on purpose with your purpose, which is a beautiful thing to see. So I'm grateful for you, Lee, and the book you wrote and how that connected me to you, and now what you're doing with your product and the new company, Cannanda, is just so fascinating. I really learned a lot about the endocannabinoid system, CB1 receptors, CB2 receptors, to the point where I feel like I could explain it to somebody because I understand it. You did that good of a job because I didn't really have a good understanding. So thank you for that. And we're going to put your website down below. If there's anywhere else that you want them to go check you out?
Our Instagram handle is Cannanda Crew, at Cannanda Crew. But yeah, you can always reach out to us, whether through our website or our Instagram handle. Ask questions, let us know what you're thinking, and we're always ready to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee. We'll do round 2, talk about some of the updated research you're doing. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ben.